heard the term big data 1,000 times, right? It's one of those buzzwords that's everywhere. Well, today, we're going to cut through all the hype to see what it really is, how it actually works, and why it's quietly changing pretty much everything around us. Let's dive in.
Have you ever been scrolling and just stopped and wondered, how does my favorite shopping site seem to read my mind? Or how does a streaming service just queue up the perfect next show without me doing anything? The answer, in a nutshell, is big data. It's the engine driving that seemingly magical personalization we've all come to expect every single day.
So, let's start with the absolute basics. What exactly are we talking about when we say big data? Because, as you're about to see, the big part is really just the tip of the iceberg. So what are we really talking about here? At its core, big data isn't just a massive pile of information. It's data that's also incredibly complex and arriving at such high speeds that the tools we've been using for decades, well, they just can't keep up. They're completely overwhelmed.
In practical terms, this means we have to bring out the big guns. We're talking advanced tech like cloud computing and machine learning. We're pulling in data from everywhere: social media, your smart devices, web apps, all to find genuinely useful, actionable insights. Just think about a real estate platform trying to make sense of millions of user clicks, thousands of new photos, and countless chat messages, all in a single day. That's a classic big data problem right there.
To really get a handle on this, experts broke the whole concept down into 6 core characteristics, what they call the 6 V's. You can think of this as the DNA of big data. So let's break them down one by one. First up, and it's the obvious one, volume.
This is the one everybody thinks of first, right? The sheer, mind-boggling scale of it all. We're not talking about gigabytes anymore. We're talking terabytes, even petabytes. Imagine an online store saving every single click from every single user for years on end. You can't just store that on a regular old server. It requires these massive, scalable systems like cloud-based data lakes.
Next up, we have velocity. Now, this isn't about data from last month or even yesterday. It's about data from the last millisecond. Velocity is the incredible speed at which information is flying in and demanding to be processed right now. Think about the constant global stream of credit card transactions needed for fraud detection, or data just pouring in from sensors on a smart farm. This requires a completely different set of tools, once it can handle a fire hose of information in real time. Third, we have variety. And this is where it gets messy. Big data isn't neat and tidy. You've got your structured data, like numbers in a spreadsheet, but you also have all this unstructured data, like text, photos, videos, you name it. Our real estate site, for example, has to process property descriptions, images, and legal PDF contracts, all at the same time. That complexity is a huge, huge challenge.
Fourth is a more subtle one, variability.
Now, don't get this one confused with variety. Variability means the meaning of the data actually changes depending on the context. So those sensor readings from that smart farm, they mean something very different in the middle of summer versus the dead of winter. User behavior on a shopping site spikes during the holidays. Your models have to be smart enough to account for these shifting patterns over time.
Number 5 is all about trust. It's called Veracity.
So with all of this data coming from so many different places, how much of it can you actually trust? That's Veracity. It's the massive challenge of dealing with the mess, the inaccurate information, the duplicate entries, the faulty sensor readings. Before you can even think about finding insights, you have to be absolutely sure your data is clean and reliable.
And finally, we get to the most important one of all, value. Because look, at the end of the day, none of the other V's matter if you can't get to this last one. Value is the entire point of the exercise. It's about transforming that massive, messy, fast-moving flood of data into something that actually helps you make better decisions, like turning a user's browsing history into a personalized property recommendation that leads to a sale.
Okay, so we've covered the theory, but what does this actually look like in the wild? Let's check out how these principles come together to create some real-world impact.
This is a perfect illustration of just how universal these principles are. I mean, look at this. On the left, you've got a real estate platform using behavior data to personalize search results. On the right, a smart farm is using sensor data to optimize irrigation. We're talking 2 completely different industries, but both are applying the exact same 6 V's to create tangible, measurable value.
So, how does a company actually start doing this stuff? It's not as simple as just buying some new software. It takes a deliberate, strategic plan. It's a journey, not a switch you can just flip.
Here's a pretty typical roadmap, and you'll notice it always starts with a clear business goal. What problem are you actually trying to solve? From there, you build the right tech, you govern the data to make sure it's clean, you automate the analysis, and you assemble the right team. But notice that final step. It loops right back to the beginning. You have to constantly measure your results to prove you're actually creating value.
This table here is the perfect cheat sheet. It pulls everything we've been talking about together in one spot. You can see exactly how each of the 6 V's applies to our real estate example, from using cloud storage to handle the sheer volume of photos to using event streaming to manage the velocity of user clicks. It's the perfect way to connect those abstract concepts to the concrete technologies that make it all happen.
You know, I think this quote really just nails the essence of our whole discussion. Big data is more than just technology, it's about building the organizational muscle, the capability to consistently turn raw information into real insight and action. It's a fundamental business skill for the digital age.
So as we wrap this up, I'll just leave you with this one question. The world is absolutely full of data, and so much of it is unseen or ignored. In your business, in your community, maybe even in your own life, what hidden value is just waiting to be discovered? Thanks for joining us.